Well, once again, happy Mother's Day to you. Today we celebrate all those women who have had a real impact in our lives. Especially today we remember the impact in the life of faith, passing on their faith to succeeding generations. Our scripture reading that we heard a few moments ago comes from the second of the pastoral letters in the New Testament. That is 2 Timothy. This letter to Timothy, written in the name of Paul, begins with expression of gratitude for Timothy. Timothy was an important leader in the early church. He was an assistant of Paul. He made a big difference in the lives of many people. His name is mentioned 27 times in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, in the pastoral letters, and in other letters in the New Testament. And so there's this expression of gratitude for Timothy at the beginning of this letter. But then it turns to the topic of Timothy's faith. I remember, it says, your sincere faith, a faith that lived first in your grandmother Lois, then in your mother Eunice, and now I am sure lives in you. Do you hear it? This faith that is Timothy's faith first lived in Lois, his grandmother, and then in Eunice, his mother, and then it resides in Timothy. That passing on of the faith from one generation to the other. How important that is. For Lois and for Eunice, this was part of their life of faith. This is part of what they understood as their God-given duty, their calling in their lives. To pass on the faith. First from Lois to Eunice, then from Eunice to Timothy. And Timothy himself would have an influence in the lives of many, many people in the early church. I can imagine that these two women perhaps conspired even in naming Timothy. I imagine they had great influence in choosing Timothy's name. See, they were believers, but we learn in the book of Acts that Timothy's father was not. So I can imagine them conspiring to name him this name, not an unusual name, but this name so that when he would ask the question as he grew up, tell me the story of my name. Why did you name me this? They could answer him. It was obvious what the meaning of his name was, because in Greek, the name Timotheos obviously means honoring God, or one who honors God. Theos, one who honors God. And so his name would be obvious. Not all names are, of course. If it's not an English word like hope, which is a beautiful name, it means hope. For Timothy, his name meant one who honors God. And they could imagine that as Timothy grew up, he might ask the question, why did you name me that? And they could answer, because we knew that you would grow up and you would honor God with your words and with your life and with your passions and with your commitments. Your life would be a life that would honor God. Timothy. One who honors God. It's a great name. Don't you love the name Timothy? I'm partial to that name myself. See, my mother named me Timothy, and when I asked her the question, why did you name me Timothy? She was a woman of deep faith and knew it was a biblical name. But the story of my name was different. Why did you name me Timothy? Well, because I thought that Timmy on Timmy and Lassie was such a cute kid that I wanted to call you Timmy. And so that's how you got your name. That's the story of my name. I had another story of my name. I was born just a few days before Christmas. I was very premature, spent a month in the incubator. And because I was born at Christmas time, the nurses nicknamed me Tiny Tim. And so that was the other story of my name. But it wasn't until I had my first Greek class in college that I understood the meaning of my name. And then I thought, I better get serious and live up to that. one who honors God. So it is that name that Timothy grew up with, and undoubtedly it helped to shape him, but it was that faith that his grandmother and mother passed down to him that made such a great impact, not only in his life, but in the lives of many, many people. That faith that first lived in Lois, and then in Eunice, and then in Timothy. So what they were doing is they were practicing the age-old practice of passing down the faith, a practice that is part of your life and mine today. Parents stand in front of this church when their child is baptized, and in the vows that they say, they agree to do what Lois did and what Eunice did. We as a congregation agree that we will help nurture a child in the faith. When they stand before us, we say, we will so order our lives after the example of Christ, that this child, surrounded by steadfast love, may be established in the faith and confirmed and strengthened in the way that leads to life. An age-old tradition. Deuteronomy 6, probably the central passage of Scripture for Jews in the Hebrew Scriptures. The Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And then it says, remember all these things that I have commanded you, and teach them to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're away. Talk about them when you rise up and when you lie down. Teach them to your children. And that's what Lois, that's what Eunice did. We celebrate those women, and we celebrate all the women that have had that kind of impact in our life of faith, that have helped mold and shape us. You know, I don't hear it very often anymore. I used to hear parents occasionally say, you know, we're just going to leave it up to our child to decide. We're not going to indoctrinate our child. We'll just leave it up to them to decide on their religion. And I always thought that was the strangest way of handling that. And when I actually had a chance to have a conversation, which was not that often, I would say, really? Because I just have a few questions. Do you leave it up to your child to decide to be potty trained or to learn to read or to show up at school? Or, I mean, the list is long. You just leave it up to chance, really. And of course the answer is no. It reminds me of the English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Had a friend over, and they were talking about this very issue. And the friend was saying, you know, I don't believe in indoctrinating children. Let them grow up and decide on their faith. Coleridge disagreed with that, and they had this almost heated conversation about it, and then the topic moved on to something else. After a little while, Coleridge said to his friend, would you like to see my garden? And took him out back to see the garden, and it was just full of weeds and overgrown. And the friend said, this is no garden. This is just a weed patch. And Coleridge said, well, my philosophy of gardening is to just let it be, and whatever happens, happens. And his friend probably got the message. So today we are grateful for grandmothers and mothers and great-grandmothers, all those women of faith that have passed down their faith to others. We're grateful for that. Now I want to hasten to say that there's another side to this, and part of that is not everyone's had that experience. There are people of faith who did not have that in their lives, and someone else, somebody, influenced them. Somebody shared faith with them, because that is the call for all of us, to be those who pass on the faith, who so order our lives after the example of Christ, that not just the children who grow up in our midst, but others can come to faith. And so there are those who didn't have that background at all, but who are people of faith. We know them. And then there are those people who grew up in a faithful family that went a different direction. We know those too. Because ultimately, one's faith is one's faith. not somebody else's. That's why in this passage it says, I remember your sincere faith. Your sincere faith. It's not Lois's faith. It's not Eunice's faith. It was their faith. They passed it down to you, but it's your faith. And then the writer says, stir up, rekindle the gift of God that is within you. That's our scripture memory verse for today. Rekindle the gift of God that is within you. Can you say that with me? Rekindle the gift of God that is within you. That's the call for Timothy. Because what we all know is that it is possible for our faith to grow cold. It is possible for that gift of faith that is within us to grow cold, to shine more dimly. Clarence Jordan has a great way of translating this passage. That word rekindle, by the way, is found only here in the New Testament. And it does mean to stir up a fire that has sort of gotten dormant, that has died down so that it burns brightly again. Clarence Jordan says, shake off the ashes of the God-given fire within you. I love that translation. Shake off the ashes of the God-given fire that is within you. And that is the call that is on all of our lives. To shake off the ashes of the fire that's within us so that we burn more brightly, so that we are warmer in our faith. And we do that by staying in community with one another. We do that not by our own power, but by the power of God within us. See, the writer goes on to say that God has not given us a spirit of cowardice, but a spirit of power, and a spirit of love, and a spirit of self-discipline. Power and love and self-discipline. That's how we shake the ashes off the God-given fire that's within us. We do it not by our own power and strength, but by God working within us. We do it not just by talking about love. We do it not just by using the words, but by living out and practicing the love that Christ calls us to. It rekindles the fire within us. It shakes the ashes off the God-given fire in us. And then there's self-discipline. We talk about it a lot. It's what discipleship is. It's worshiping together, it's giving, it's praying, it's serving, it's studying, it's being in community with one another. These are the disciplines of our faith that help us keep our fire burning brightly. I give thanks to God today for my mother, my grandmother. I give thanks to God for all the mothers in this room and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and for all of you who have passed on your faith and are in the process of passing on your faith to those who come after us. May we all be engaged in that sacred work, and may we all be engaged in shaking off the ashes so that the fire, the God-given fire within us, burns brightly. Amen.